The Beginning of the End by Robert Farmilo. Book 1, Part 1, Chapter 1. Somewhere, nowhere. A conference was going on between two creatures. They were oblivious to their surroundings, which was just as well, because there were no surroundings, just a void, emptiness, with no name and non-substance, even to the absence of the existence of time. They had come to this place that had no name for privacy, and they were alone. The purpose for this meeting was simple enough. The dominant creature, Ravana, king of all demons, was there to instruct one of his minions, the subservient creature called the Skull. Instruct in what? Ravana, king of all demons, strolled in strides, taking up the length of several galaxies at a step. But since there was no reference point, you would never have known this. His feet spanned distances. If you laid 1 billion miles end to end, you'd be able to measure the length of a small part of his little toe. He could get bigger if he wanted to. Thing of it was that in this place it didn't matter. There was no beginning, and there was no end. There was no thing, other than the presence of two creatures. For his appearance at this meeting with the Skull, Ravana, king of all the demons, had chosen to wear 10 heads, and each head laid on with thick, nasty lips, succulent lips, lips that boasted the hiding of sharp, cruel teeth. And with each set of lips and teeth came a thin, slithering tongue with razor-sharp slicing edges and a stiletto-stabbing tip. Each head had eyes that could see far away and close up, all at the same time. Ravana had ears with each face, and his ears were like his eyes. They could hear the most distant sound and the sound closest to him, all at the same time. Ravana had hair of the darkest black, oily and greasy hair, like the darkest pitch and blackest tar, and each hair was lit up from inside, glimmering and gleaming a glorious black radiance. On each of his 10 heads, the mighty Ravana had a face on the front, a face on each side, and a face on the top. Ravana knew his spectacle of faces would do more than any of the words he would speak to the Skull. He knew the Skull well, so he had chosen his appearance with care. It was important to Ravana that he impressed the Skull with his will, and the force of his will would be transmitted more through the illusion of his power than any cracking of skulls would bring. Keeping pace with him was his minion, the Skull. It was the Skull with the vermilion eyes. The Skull was an it, and it had no gender. The Skull was Ravana's creation. The irony was that the Skull did not know this. The Skull was less than a slave and more than a disciple. The Skull was dependent on Ravana for its existence, for it derived all purpose from him. The Skull was not as big as Ravana, not because it couldn't be as big or even bigger, but because it didn't dare to be. The Skull was terrified of Ravana. Fear and loathing held the Skull tied tight to a leash of groveling obsequiousness. At the end of the leash was Ravana, jerking this way and that as the fancy took him. According to some mysterious design the Skull did not appreciate or comprehend. The Skull thought its master mad, insane, and crazy at the best of times. As it listened to Ravana's latest plot, it became convinced that he had gone too far in his madness. Ravana told the Skull, "Skull, you will be the spear point of this project on your planet. It is time to speed up the disarray. It is time to weaken the fabric, atom by atom. It is time to end it all." The skull winced at this idea and was terrified at the prospect of everything ending. It still had so many desires left unfulfilled, so many virgins to drag down, so many holy people to corrupt, so many multitudes of little children to degrade, and so much power to wield. And now it was all to be taken away? Even what little it did have? Too much! Ravana interrupted the skull's regret. Oh, I know what you're thinking, skull. What about my destiny, my time to play with the power? It does not matter. I am fed up. Done. I will end it all. The skull dared to speak. But, Master, how can you do this? You question me? You doubt me? No, Master, not I. I merely wonder why. Ravana hesitated for the merest instant, which lasted 10,000 years if our Earth-based anthropological time had existed in the place these two had come to for their meeting, a place with no attributes. Even to say it had no attributes is to defy logic. But then, this no place does not even exist in the sense that we are used to. He answered the skull vehemently. I see all the pasts. I know all the presents. And I perceive all the futures, all at the same time. Do you know what this is like? No, Master, I do not. But I'd like to, thought the skull, have such power. Ravana glowered. I know all this, and I am in every bit of each event at every moment of time, all at the same time, and it is very wearying. I know it will all come to pass, and the universe and all the dimensions, all of it, will roll back into itself and become nothing. I know it will then start all over again. I know this because it has already happened, is about to happen, and is happening right now. I am here, and I am there, and I am bored. I am angry. I am furious. Do you know who I am raging at? The skull did not know. Ravana sounded mad, insane, strolling through infinity as if on a Sunday walk. The skull answered him. No, Lord, I do not know. Skull, I'm going to find out who put all this here, who made it all, once and for all, who made the gods, who made the demons, and who made me. And I'm going to find out who made the ones who made them. And I will keep going until I have found the very starting point. Then I will have found the very source of my displeasure. Then, once and for all, I will end this impulse of life forever.